Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good evening. I am Siti Nora Shikin, your host for today. I would like to sincerely welcome everyone to our forum discussion. We are here to discuss the issue about education in pandemic situation. So in today's forum discussion, our topic will be, is COVID-19 impacting education? While countries are at different points in their COVID-19 infection rates, worldwide there are currently more than 1.2 billion children in 186 countries affected by school closures due to the pandemic. Without further ado, let us discuss further about this interesting topic while we exchange beneficial ideas, and perhaps this forum will be a great source of information for all of us. Please allow me to introduce our honorable panelists for today's forum. Our first panelist is Datuk Dr. Muhammad Razi bin Muhammad Jidin, our Minister of Education. Welcome, Datuk. I hope you are doing well. Next, we have invited Puan Hajah Rohana binti Muhammad Saleh, the Vice President for Women Department of National Union of the Teaching Profession NUTP. Assalamualaikum, Puan. We are very delighted to have you here. Our third panelist for today is Mr. Amirul Farhan bin Mat Hussein, who is a representative from the Ministry of Communications and Multimedia. Thank you for joining us today, sir. Glad to have you on board. Our final panelist is the Dean of Faculty of Psychiatry and Psychological Education in University of Malaya, Professor Madya Dr. Sarimah binti Uthman.
Thank you to our moderator, Ms. Nora.
We appreciate your time to join us today, Professor. Dear honorable panelists and respected audience, before we start our forum in details, I would like to remind everyone that the duration of our forum discussion today will be about approximately 30 minutes. At the end of our forum discussion, I will open to a Q&A session from the audience. We will allow at least a minimum of one question and a maximum of two questions only for our panelists to answer. COVID-19, as we know, is highly contagious, especially among children. We had to shut down schools and universities just for the sake of preventing this COVID-19 from spreading. Will it not bring impact in education? Let us hear from the Minister of Education. I would like to invite Datuk Dr. Muhammad Razi bin Muhammad Jidin to share his views on this. The floor is yours, Datuk.
Thank you, Ms. Nora. Assalamualaikum and good evening to all. First of all, thank you for willingly inviting me for sharing my opinion about the issue today. Is COVID-19 impacting our educations? In my opinion, COVID-19 is not affecting our education sector. Since COVID-19 struck our country at the end of 2019, the government has implemented Movement Control Order (MCO). Since that, to ensure our students can continue their learning session, the Ministry of Education has introduced the Home-Based Teaching and Learning Policy, also known as a PDPR, in March 2020. It involves teaching and learning method beyond online learning platform. The teachers are given the flexibility to deliver a lesson based on their students and their suitability. In addition, on 7 February 2021, the Ministry of Education had relaunched Didik TV KPM to support PDPR policy. Didik TV KPM is a Malaysian education television network owned, produced and operated by a joint venture between the Educational Technology Division of Malaysia Ministry of Education and Media, Prima Berhad. The network airs education programming for various school subjects and helps students learn even during pandemic.
Datuk, can you share with us what are the guidelines that the Ministry of Education had enforced during this pandemic?
In addition, to ensure the education institutions such as school and university is safe from COVID-19 infection, the Ministry of Education has enforced School Management and Operation 3.0 guideline on 9 February 2021. This guideline is also parallel with the National Recovery Plan and RP policy to reopen the school and reactivate a face-to-face learning session. For your information, Ms. Moderator, this guideline contains how a school or university management administrates their institutions and many preventive steps from getting infected by COVID-19 is included with this guideline. One of the guidelines that contain is all teaching staff, including teachers and lecturers, are required to be fully vaccinated. Student capacity for the school needs to be below 15%. So that means attendance by rotation is needed. Physical imprisonment among a student is needed. Face mask is required to wear during school session. Body temperature screening is needed before entering school premises. Canteen only, providing packaged food.
Datuk, could you please spill us some information in regard to the COVID-19 immunization program?
On the other hand, through the Minister of Health, the Malaysian government also have been conducted national COVID-19 immunization program. This program targeted the frontliner and government staff, including teacher and lecturer, to be fully vaccinated for COVID-19 vaccine. The ministry take this step to achieve herd immunity among Malaysians. Based on the Ministry of Health record, as of 8 February 2021, 2,791,409 teenagers have been fully vaccinated. Ministry of Health also had launched PIC kits for 5 to 15 years old to get vaccine starting from this February 2022. When the teacher or lecturer and student get full vaccinated, education places like school and university will be more safer for face-to-face learning and teaching process. In conclusions, education sector in Malaysia is never interrupted and always continue their operation even during pandemic. I, as a Minister of Education, together with the ministry, always try our best to ensure education sector never shutting down again. If we had to face another movement control order, MCO, again, I as a minister guarantee education sector will not interrupted because we are ready with various strategy in order to maintaining the operation of education sector. That's all from me. Thank you.
Wow, very informative sharing by our Minister of Education. Thank you, Datuk. However, due to this pandemic, we had to shift towards online learning where everything had been digitalized. Some educators found it to be troublesome and ineffective. How true can this be? Let us now hear the opinion from the educator herself, the Dean of Faculty of Psychiatry and Psychological Education in University of Malaya, Professor Madya Dr. Sarima Bintu.
So, moderator Miss Nora. My view on this topic is unfinishing learning is real and inequitable. As we analyze the cause of the pandemic, we use the term unfinishing learning to capture the reality that students were not given the opportunity this year to complete all the learning they will have completed in a typical years. First, students were not given the opportunity this year to complete all the learning they will have completed in a typical years. They are at risk of finishing school without the skills, behavior, mindset to succeed in college or in the workforce. We can compare student performance of 2021 with the performance of similar students prior to the pandemic testing in 2021. were about behind in math and 9 points behind in reading compared with match students in previous years.
Professor, if I may ask, which group of students are most likely to be affected?
Some groups were disproportionately affected. Students of color and low-income students suffered most. Students in predominantly low-income school and in urban location also lost more learning during the pandemic than their peers in high-income rural and suburban schools. Students faced multiple schedule change, were assigned new teachers mid-year, and struggle with glitchy internet connection and Zoom fatigue. By the end of the year, more than 98% of students had access to some form of in-person learning, from the traditional 5-day week to hybrid models. In the interim, districts oscillate among virtual, hybrid, and in-person learning as they balance the need to keep students and staff safe with the need to provide an effective learning environment. Unfinished learning did not vary significantly across elementary grade, despite reports that remote learning was more challenging for early elementary students. Our results suggest the impact was just as meaningful for all the elementary students. We can hypothesize that perhaps younger elementary students receive more help from parents and older siblings, and that older elementary students were more likely to be struggle alone.
Well, thank you very much, Professor, for sharing with us. I'm sure our panelist, Mr. Amirul Farhan, too, has got so much to share with us from his perspective. So, what is your say about this topic, Mr. Amirul?
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thanks to the moderator and the invited panel that I respect. And good evening to all of you. Okay. I'm Amir Farhan, and I stand here today as a representative from Ministry of Communication and Multimedia. Would like to give my humble opinion regarding the topic of this house today, which is COVID-19 impacting education? Malaysia ranked at 59 in QS top university in 2021, 70 in 2020, and 87 in 2019. These 3 years were the year where we are in the pandemic. Pre-pandemic in 2018, Malaysia was ranked at 114 in QS top universities. With that being said, I strongly think that COVID-19 does not impact the education sector. Based on article I have read, which was authored by Ashraf Hamzah from New Straits Times, RM 14.4 billion was allocated to higher education ministry, including RM 50 million for infrastructure and equipment replacement in public universities. It was the largest allocation of RM 50.4 billion, of equivalent to 15.6% of total government expenditure for 2021 budget. It is safe to say that from the Ministry of Finance, and they did their best to allocate Ministry of Education with the highest allocation as they can to be spent to ensure that the education sector will not be affected by the pandemic.
Very well, Mr. Amirul. How sure are you that there will be no misuse of funds happen? As a citizen myself, how can you assure me that the allocations by the Ministry of Finance will be fully utilized by our Ministry of Education solely for the purpose of maintaining our education sector.
Okay, thank you to moderator. To enlighten your curiosity, here I will explain to you further regarding the expenditure of the budget. The ratio of homes with television is higher than the percentage of households with an internet connection. As a result, creating an education television program is a means to help the underprivileged demographic. To strengthen my point, I would like to bring an article to the table from the Age Malaysian Weekly stating about 36.9% do not have access to the internet at home. Hence, TVOK was created to fill this void with an initial 2 hours of teaching per day. RM2 millions contract was given to a vendor to create 800 education content programs by May 2020. Besides that, in order to overcome the lacking of teachers' experience in teaching online, initiative have been taken by Malaysian Ministry of Education together with UNICEF Malaysia to develop an online resource and training to assist teachers in conducting online teaching and learning with digital learning teachers community with MOE. UNESCO says that preparing teachers for pedagogical change will help them use technology and pedagogy to their fullest potential. A teacher training program that comes just in time with the sudden school closure can help both teacher and student.
Very well, that sounds great, and I must say that I'm happy with the initiatives that our government did. Thank you so much for sharing it with all of us here. Let us now ascertain some insights from Puan Haja Rohana binti Muhammad Saleh, the Vice President for Women Department of National Union of the Teaching Profession NUTP. Point in reference to Mr. Fahan's claim earlier on the scarcity of teachers' experiences in online teaching, how would you respond to that? Do you agree with the claim? Do you mind sharing with us your thoughts on this?
Assalamualaikum and good evening everyone. Thank you to our moderator Ms. Nora for being willing to invite me to this forum. Today, I want to talk about is COVID-19 impacting educations. In my opinion, I strongly agree COVID-19 is truly impacting our educations because it affects the assessment of learning. The government opted for distance learning method to overcome the challenge by strengthening support for the teacher and re-evaluating assessment policy. However, it became a challenge for the teachers when it was difficult to monitor student performance. As a representative teachers, we believe during the Movement Control Order MCO, some parents had to work in the office in rotations. There was no parental support to constantly encourage and monitor children attending class during COVID. If these situations persist, it is very difficult for the teacher to know the student progresses.
Point, can you share with us on the PDPR challenges?
Akademi Malaysia kini artikel date June 25, 2021, 70 to 80% of teachers reported that the challenge of PDPR was the difficulty in getting student attentions. Study also shows that teachers' teaching methods are less effective because they do not align with student level of ability and learning. The opinion aligned with the UKM study led by Associate Professor Madya Dr. Azrin Rohani Mansor, who found that most students did not focus on PDPR due to the unconducive residential environment. Finally, communications between student and teacher through the PDPR is very limited. and students tend to have miscommunications during teaching and learning sessions through an online class. These issues need to be taken seriously so that this won't be a major problem. And we need to work together to handle it. That is all for me. Thank you.
Yes, point. I totally agree. That was a good one. Communication is the key in education, especially when you are dealing with younger students who tends to lose focus so easily. Miscommunication leads to misunderstanding, which rarely leads to anything good. Respectable audience, let us now begin with the Q&A session. The first question I have is for Dato Dr. Muhammad Razi. Dato, referring to the COVID-19 guidelines that you mentioned, what is the actual purpose?
All these items or guidelines are made just for one purpose: to ensure our children are safe from COVID-19 infection during their learning session and to ensure that their education is uninterrupted.
Very well. Okay, thank you for answering the question, Dato. Second question I have is for Mr. Amirul. Not all of this comes from a well-off family. As you know, online learning needs mobile data, handphone, tablets, or laptop. Plus, it might be a problem to be sharing devices. What if a family of 3 kids can only afford one device? Perhaps you can share with us what are the solutions that the government provided to overcome these problems.
That is a good question, and I try to answer your question. Regarding your inquiry, under the Learn from Home initiative, YTL Foundation has taken the initiative to provide free smartphone with 12 months of 120 gigabyte internet to students in need. YTL Foundation in 2020. Under the economy stimulus plan, Malaysia has to start to project to improve the internet connection every day from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mobile telcos are giving out an extra 1 gigabyte of free data. This is starting on 1st April in 2020. In addition, Telekom Malaysia and Time Telecommunication Company has added more fiber optic capacity in order to keep the internet stable.
To conclude our topic today, we can see that pandemic has given us so much impacts in our education systems. But are they positive or negative impacts? Well, that is all depends on how we chose to see it. There are some positive impacts such as digitalizing the education systems as we move towards new era. Digitalization has a proven impact on improving quality of life. However, if we chose to see how the COVID-19 impacting the education negatively, there are indeed many challenges and weaknesses that we can also agree on. Thank you so much to all panelists for their willingness in sharing with us today. Hopefully, our forum discussion today has been fruitful to everyone joining. Take care and stay safe.